Hey everybody, and welcome to this special on Mars transiting in Scorpio. I'm Amani. I'm a karmic, holistic, astrological life coach, and I like to go in depth in all that I do, and all of my interpretations, especially when it comes to Venus, Mercury, Sun transits and everything really, are based on Vedic astrology, which is based on where the planets or the luminaries, which are the sun and the moon, are any given time in the sky, and all times are in GMT time as well. So yeah, thanks for listening, and yeah. So this is when the warrior, fighter, Mars descends, goes down into the underworld, into the depths of Scorpio, right? So this year, Mars enters Scorpio on the 27th of October at 11:13 a.m. GMT time until the 27th of November at 10:48 p.m. when Mars enters out of bounds. When still in Scorpio, and then on the 7th of December, Mars moves into Sagittarius while still out of bounds. So Mars in Scorpio is psychologically intense and transformative. And Mars enters Scorpio, which, in some systems of astrology, Mars co-rules Scorpio, the 8th house, although, Pluto, when that was found, took over the rulership. So, yeah. So, Mars action isn't going to be typical where we, march ahead like when it's in Aries with obvious force, just getting things done. It sort of like when Mars is in Scorpio, it's like a psychological armor, and it prepares us for a kind of strategic battle that transforms, our soul, our higher consciousness, our thought, our psychology, right? Our 8th house, the things that we keep and repress deep inside. Our finances as well, because the 8th house rules that, and it's just not about transforming our external circumstances. It's about going deep and preparing a strategy that can change, reshape your foundations, your day-to-day routines, and especially how you show up in the world. How you assert yourself, how you assert your boundaries, how you respect other people's boundaries, and how you let other people cross your boundaries or not. So when Mars moves into Scorpio this year, it makes a few aspects, and these aspects are going to influence the whole time Mars is in Scorpio, which is for about 6 weeks. And of course, Mars also goes out of bounds during that time for about 14 days. So I'm just gonna talk about that in a minute. So when the moon makes a semi-square to Mars, as it does this time, it adds emotional tension, friction, but it gives us the motivating sort of like force to take decisive action, to make our minds up about what we want and do things, put things into action. It also makes a conjunction with Mercury, and this gives us mental courage and strategic communication skills, allowing us to flow with communication. Mars makes a trine to Jupiter, and it allows us to be confident in our action as well. So working really well with the moon semi-square to Mars. Mars also makes a trine to Saturn, and this allows us to apply discipline, strategic planning and sustained effort. Mars also makes an opposition to Uranus, and this allows us to sort of like break through the tension, handle the tension between wanting to go deep, right, and wanting to be free and spontaneous. Mars makes a trine to Neptune, and this allows us to make changes in the way that we heal our psychological, emotional and spiritual wounds. And it reminds us that we need to think and take wisdom, think about our action before we do it, and supports us in doing that. And Mars is semi-square to the midhaven, helps us to resolve, tension between our, what people want us to be like in our expression and our authentic expression. So it helps us sort out problems and find our true expression, or allows us to continue doing the work to find out who we truly are. But I'm going to talk more about these aspects later. This is just a summary version. There's also a grand trine between Mercury in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, Saturn and Neptune retrograde in Pisces, and Jupiter in Cancer. So creating a nice flowing water sign trine here, and it's like having an astrological council of healers supporting our fighting efforts with psychological insight, strategic action and spiritual wisdom. And we got Jupiter in Cancer giving us the nurturing protection there, and with Saturn and Neptune in retrograde and Chiron there as well, Uranus there. Saturn and Neptune in Pisces allows us to rethink the way we carry out our spiritual practice, right? Chiron retrograde in Aries allows us to heal our fighting skills. So if you're not really someone who stand up for yourself, it gives us that fighting spirit, and we have Uranus in retrograde, and this grounds our efforts to change. This helps us to take those slow daily steps and control ourselves, so to speak, and be steady rather than being impulsive, right? But Chiron in Aries can make us a bit impulsive at this time, but because it's retrograde, it's more inward. So we just need to make sure we're looking after our emotional health. So it gives us the energetic frequency of the sacred warrior, where action becomes a tool for deep healing and psychological transformation rather than simple conquest. And it just allows us to be supported by a flowing river of emotional wisdom and spiritual insight that can help us transform intensity into genuine service and self-love and care. And what makes this Mars transit in Scorpio special this year is that it finds itself in a exact trine near enough with Jupiter and in a conjunction with Mercury. And it's like if you imagine our inner fighter has just finished receiving detailed intelligence briefings, Mars in Libra, and is now heading out with the blessing and wisdom of the great teacher. And the tight quincunx to Chiron allows us that we can use this energy, this martial Mars energy, to make immediate changes around the way we heal ourselves and deal with our psychological, emotional and spiritual wounds, right? So as I said, on the 27th of November, and Mars is still in Scorpio then, but it enters out of bounds for the last 2 weeks before it moves into Sagittarius while still out of bounds. So when Mars enters out of bounds, it really gives us an increase in our willpower and determination, allowing us to push our limits, and we can have more of a laser focus intensity for deep change as well, and doing that inner healing work. And it gives us the courage to face taboo subjects and hidden truths that others avoid and what we've been avoiding in our lifetime, right? So it's really good to do that deep shadow work and to have those hard, difficult conversations with ourselves and others, and face the things that we repress, whether it be sexual kinks or our desire to be more spiritual, but the world tells us to conform to what they deem as acceptable, right? So it really allows us to get outside of our comfort zone and not live up to other people's expectations, but to find out what we really want from life and from ourselves and our personal self-expression. But negatively, it can make us more angry, and it can lead to explosive outbursts and anger and destructive impulses that we can't control. So we may go too overboard with our expression of our sexual and other desires, overindulging drugs, alcohol, or anything else that's toxic to us in excess. It can make us more obsessive in our behaviours, and we can be more manipulative or vengeful, wanting to hurt others, or others can feel that way about us. It increases our sexual intensity, and this can overwhelm relationships or our own, energy levels. So we just need to watch out for that. So the best use of Mars out of bounds is to channel this energy into psychological work, as I said, research or investigative sort of like work. So ultimately, it's great for transformative healing practices and shadow work, as I said, medical procedures, surgery or crisis intervention, letting go of traumatic relationships, toxic habits and thoughts, starting or continuing the work of that, because it can be hard to leave and to change, right? In terms of the karmic meanings, it can allow us to integrate our warrior energy and our healing energy, so our self-assertion with our caring and nurturing side. And we may have past life memories of when we were a fighter or soldier or something like that. Karmic debts around power, sexuality and control may come up so we can resolve them. It's our soul's higher consciousness core to transform destructive patterns into regenerative power. It can intensify our passion but can also create jealousy and possessiveness in our relationship dynamics, right? It tests our trust through power struggles and emotional extremes, so we just need to watch out for that in our relationships. It can also trigger deep healing or explosive endings in our relationships, or any sort of ending that we need to do, right? Ways of being, expressing ourselves. Collectively, it can shine a light on hidden corruption and systematic power abuses. It can bring political upheavals, chaos, and revolutionary movements can gain progress, and shadow work collectively can emerge through crisis and transformation. So the best use to deal with this energy is when Mars is out of bound, is to be more mindful and aware and seek professional guidance when needed. So when Mars is in Scorpio and not out of bounds, so it's inbounds, it's like watching a master strategist deciding to specialize in psychological warfare battle, but the kind that heals rather than destroys, right? And Mars is our planet of action, desire and assertiveness. And when it moves into Scorpio's realm of depth, transformation and hidden power, this creates a potent combination for anyone ready to do the deep work of authentic change, right? So, as I said, it's really great for anyone spending time in therapeutic work, personal development, therapy, deep research, strategic planning, or any plan requiring sustained intensity and psychological penetration. So yeah, it gives us the amazing ability to maintain focus and determination even when dealing with the most challenging psychological or emotional chaos, and it supports healing work that requires courage, investigation that uncovers important truths, and the kind of strategic action that creates lasting transformation rather than just temporary change. But negatively, it can manifest as emotional manipulation, obsessive behaviour, power struggles that become destructive rather than transformative, or using intensity and passion to control rather than heal. So Mars transit in Scorpio can turn every sort of relationship interaction into a psychological battlefield negatively, and every desire into an obsession that consumes us, distracts us rather than fulfills us. So we just have to be careful about meeting our needs, especially our sexual needs. Are we really wanting this, or are we just distracting ourselves? Are we overindulging? Why are we doing this? Are there deeper psychological and emotional and spiritual reasons for this that need our attention and healing? So the best use of Mars transit in Scorpio is to use Mars's incredible drive and determination into genuine healing work, transformation, change, strategic action that serves both personal growth and collective good. And as I said, it's really brilliant energy for therapy work, research projects, strategic business planning, or any activity that requires sustained intensity and applied wisdom and purpose. So to use this energy practically, start intensive healing work or continue it, especially things you've been avoiding, tackle, confront complex problems that require strategic thinking and long-term sustained effort, right? And use your increased psychological insight to take action that creates meaningful change in your life or in your community. So yeah, that's the end of the summary version of Mars in Scorpio. If you want, the in-depth version, then, I'm about to go and talk about it from every angle, right? So in terms of the planetary energies involved, Mars rules action, desire, assertiveness and physical energy, and it rules Aries, which is all about starting things, being a pioneer, breaking the mold, thinking outside of the box and direct action, and Scorpio traditionally, which is all about strategic, transformative action, right? So it's kind of like opposing sort of ways of going about getting things done. Aries energy can be a bit more impulsive. Scorpio energy can be a bit more well thought out. So Mars energy is like an astrological engine. It provides the drive, motivation and physical force needed to manifest our desires and overcome obstacles. It's the planet that asks, what do I want and how do I get it? Scorpio energy brings psychological depth, transformative power and investigative instincts and emotional intensity. And the modern ruler is Pluto. The traditional ruler is Mars, and in some systems, Mars and Pluto rules both Scorpio and Aries, right? So yes, Scorpios fits water energy that does well, excels at uncovering hidden truths, transforming through crises, and diving beneath surface appearances to understand and change the deeper reality. So Scorpio energy is penetrating, passionate and utterly committed to change. So ultimately, when Mars is in Scorpio, we get action that goes beyond surface level achievement to deep psychological transformation. It's desire that doesn't just look for satisfaction but also wants a complete metamorphosis, change, and assertiveness that can penetrate to the heart of any matter. And this combination creates a natural ability for healing work, strategic planning, investigation and any action that requires both courage and psychological sophistication. And the beautiful thing about Mars in Scorpio is that it's in its traditional home sign, and it's where we get action that's both powerful and wise, intense but not reckless. Instead of Mars's sometimes impulsive nature, Scorpio energy provides the depth and strategy that makes action truly effective for lasting change. So practically, Mars transiting in Scorpio allows us to solve problems others haven't been able to solve, the courage to face difficult truths and take action based on them, be more strategic in action, work on challenging projects or things we've been putting off, and take transformative action that creates, lasting rather than temporary change, as I said. But negatively, we can be more obsessive, compulsive in our thoughts and behaviour. We can use intensity and passion to manipulate or control others, or they can do this to us. There can be power struggles that become destructive rather than, constructive, productive and beneficial. And we can just feel emotionally overwhelmed, and this prevents us from taking effective action. So we need to slow down, take care of ourselves, give ourselves the time and space to think and deal with this energy. Financially, positively, it allows us to make strategic financial planning that confronts root causes rather than symptoms. We can invest and make those decisions based on thorough research and investigation. It gives us the ability to uncover hidden financial opportunities or problems and take the financial action that creates long-term security rather than quick profits. But negatively, it can lead to financial obsessions or compulsive spending and using money as a tool for manipulation or control, or making financial decisions driven by emotional intensity intensity rather than strategic thinking, or it can lead to financial power struggles that damage relationships, right? Politically, as I said earlier, it allows us to confront systematic problems rather than surface issues. Investigative work that uncovers political corruption or hidden agendas can be done. It allows for more strategic political planning that creates lasting change, and political leadership that combines passion with psychological sophistication as well. But negatively, there can be political manipulation through emotional intensity, power struggles that become personally destructive, political obsessions that prevent practical action, or using political action to settle personal scores rather than, serving the collective good. And in terms of the materialistic social collective meanings of Mars transiting in Scorpio, it allows us to confront root causes of problems rather than just the symptoms. We can take collective action that transforms rather than just protest, and we can do community healing work that confronts deep social wounds and cultural transformation that honours both depth and practical change. But negatively, there can be social manipulation through emotional intensity, collective obsessions that prevent practical action, community power struggles that become destructive, or social movements can become more about fighting enemies than creating solutions and resolving the problems, Psychologically, it allows us to take action, increases disability on our psychological healing and growth needs, giving us the courage to face and transform difficult psychological patterns. And we can do the inner work, the shadow work, and all of the therapy, right, that creates lasting change. And it gives us the psychological insight which we can apply through practical action and changes rather than just understanding and thinking and rationalizing it and overthinking. This is a doing energy, right, going deep and taking those slow, steady daily steps to change. Negatively, it can add to the psychological manipulation or control games. Obsessive psychological analysis can prevent us taking action. We can use psychological insight to harm rather than heal, or emotional intensity can overwhelm us rather than motivate effective action. Esoterically, it can give us the understanding that action can be a form of spiritual practice, giving us the ability to take action based on deep spiritual insight, healing work that confronts spiritual as well as psychological wounds, and recognition that transform us, and that requires both inner work and outer action, so balance between the thought and doing, right? It's all about doing and understanding it on a deep level. But negatively, we can use this spiritual or esoteric hidden knowledge to manipulate or control others. We can bypass the necessary spiritual, psychological and emotional, depth work, and we can not take practical action as well. And we can just use occult and spiritual practices that are focused on personal power rather than service, or on the belief that spiritual development doesn't require practical action in the world, So, thinking that all we have to do is meditate 24/7, we don't need to take care of our physical or financial or any other needs. It's all about balance. Spirituality is meant to enrich our life, not to destruct or distract us. And yes, some people are maybe here to be more reflective than others, but we must never escape our earthly responsibilities as well, insofar as not doing all we can to meet our psychological, emotional, spiritual and financial needs. Of course, it has to be within our power, but a lot of the times we can use spirituality to sort of avoid taking care of the things we need to take care of, right? Using it as an excuse. On the symbolic, emotional and creative level, it wants us to use creative expression that transforms both the creator, you, and your audience. Creative work that confronts deep emotional truths, working on that and taking creative action that heals rather than just entertains, and using emotional expression that motivates practical change rather than just a release. Wants us to, produce work, whether it's podcast, writing, drawing, designing, whatever, that sort of like makes you take action if you're just doing it for yourself, or inspires others, with the purpose of inspiring others, because of course we can't force others to do anything, but work that helps people make practical change can do really well under this energy. Negatively, creative work can become excessive or manipulative, and artistic expression can exploit rather than explore emotional intensity, and this can lead to creative blocks due to us being perfectionistic. Sometimes we just have to create and do the thing, and this is a message to me as well as anyone who's listening, right? And we can use creativity to avoid rather than support necessary action as well. So now I'm just going to talk about the aspects that Mars is making as it goes into Scorpio this year in more depth. So, as I said earlier, the moon makes a semi-square to Mars, and this is applying at 0.31. So this brings minor tension that creates productive friction between our emotional needs and assertive action. So it can add to the emotional motivation that we need to take decisive action. As I said, it gives us the ability to act on emotional insights and intuitive understanding, and integrate our feelings and do the things that we need to do and take action more effectively, and do the things that are personally meaningful to us. Negatively, it can add to emotional impulsiveness, and this can lead to us doing regrettable actions. We can have a difficulty balancing emotional needs with practical action, and we can have a tendency to act out our emotions rather than channeling them constructively. Mercury also makes a conjunction to Mars. This is separating, and this brings a conjunction between our communication and action, and it gives us the mental courage, adds to the strategic thinking and the ability to create and communicate with passion and conviction. Standing up for yourself, standing up for what you believe in, even if others say they don't believe in it, not needing others to believe in it, just wanting to be your own person. It also helps us to, do complex things and tackle complex problems and solve them. But negatively, it can add to the mental aggression or our tendency to use words as weapons, or it can add to the difficulty in us, moderating the intensity of communication action, so we can find ourselves not being able to deal with this intense power, and this can make us say things hastily and impulsive that hurt others, or even hurt ourselves. Mars is trying to Jupiter 0.33, applying is a powerful aspect between our action and our expansion, growth needs, and our desire and wisdom, and it allows us to take optimistic action and confidently go after our goals, adding to our ability to do the things that serve both personal growth and collective good, and it increases our leadership abilities and natural charm, charisma, and likability, right? And it allows us to take action that expands our life, gets us outside of our comfort zone. But negatively, we can be too overconfident, and this leads to us taking on more things than we can handle, or the ease of this energy can allow us to avoid the deeper work that Mars transit in Scorpio requires. So we have to practically, take the mind for action to do the things that need doing. Mars is Saturn is applying at 1.48, and this brings structure, routine, and disciplined action, and then adds to our ability to be more strategic in our planning and do the things that require long-term effort, and it gives us the ability to plan and execute long-term strategies, increases our focus and concentration for complex projects, and adds to our ability to take action that builds rather than destroys. But negatively, it can add to the risk of us becoming overly inflexible in our action and plans, and using a structured approach, a routine approach, to avoid the emotional depth and flexibility that Mars in Scorpio needs us to do, right? Mars' opposition to Uranus adds to our ability to take that deep strategic action, providing us with the energy to take new approaches to doing the things we need to get done in our life, and looking after our psychological, emotional, spiritual, financial and other needs, and balance depth with flexibility, and ground our action in strategic thinking rather than just rebelling for the sake of it, to stand out or provoke others to get a reaction out of them. Negatively, it can add to the conflict we can feel between our desire for depth and our need for freedom. We can be more unpredictable and erratic in our action that undermines strategic planning, and we can just rebel against the intensity and commitment that Mars in Scorpio wants us to sort of like lean into, right? Mars is trine to Neptune, is a planet at 5.40, and this brings a nice flow of energy between our ability to take action and spirituality, and allowing ourselves to be more compassionate and intuitive in our action, increases our intuitive action and spiritual motivation, and we can take a more, as I said, empathetic approach to conflicts, and it gives us spiritual insight into effective strategies to use to resolve conflicts. But negatively, we can sort of become ungrounded with this energy and idealize action rather than dealing with the practical requirements of change, and use spiritual concepts to avoid taking decisive action, so getting lost in spiritual ideas and not applying them practically. And that's what we need to do, right, in our day-to-day life. Anything we learn, say we believe in, it must be reflected in our day-to-day actions. Otherwise, it's just a mere concept, it's just an idea, it's not a practice, we're not embodying it, we're not really representing it. And Mars is quincunx to Chiron, is a planet at 0.12, and this allows us to take immediate action between action and healing, and we can have a desire to change the way we handle our psychological wounds, right? And it allows us to transform our personal wounds into motivative action that helps ourselves and others, and take action that serves healing rather than just personal desire, and be more assertive. But negatively, taking action can reopen wounds rather than healing them, if we don't look for the strategies to help us manage them, right? If you feel overwhelmed, lean into self-care, get help, go slow, we can act out our wounded patterns, staying stuck in our toxic thought and behaviour and relationship patterns rather than healing them, and we can just have a difficulty integrating healing insights into effective action. And Mars is semi-square to the midheaven, brings our attention to our ability to take action and our public reputation, and it wants us to take any lessons that can be taken from self-reflection about the proper expression of our Mars, our doing energy, especially in our professional life, and to sort of learn from that, and to resolve any challenges around public action and your career assertiveness. But negatively, it can sort of like add to the tension from recent public expressions of assertiveness that may have been inappropriate. So we can either face resistance to any change in expression, because people don't like change, or you may act in a way that provokes people. So be mindful of your words, stand up for yourself, but respect other people's ability to do so as well, and try to reduce any conflicts in the workplace amicably, where the needs of everyone involved is sort of like understood or at least met, and try to compromise. Yeah, compromise is key. The grand trine between Mercury in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, Saturn and Neptune retrograde in Pisces, and Jupiter in Cancer at 25% orb tightness supports our healing and change, right? Adding to us being able to have psychological insight into what needs changing, adding to our ability to communicate strategically, giving us the courage and determination to act on difficult issues, face the writing on the wall, to have the uncomfortable conversations and make the uncomfortable changes that need to be made, right? Saturn and Neptune in Pisces gives us the spiritual wisdom and structured compassion, and Jupiter in Cancer allows us to grow in the ways that we give and receive nurturing and love and affection, and also can increase our emotional intelligence, right? Adding to our ability to take action that truly serves healing and change, right? And it supports us, to act with spiritual wisdom and make sure that action serves nurturing rather than, destroying things and hurting others and being vengeful, because Mars in Scorpio can lead to excessive behaviour, manipulative behaviour, so use this energy to transform ourselves and our community, think about the collective good and flow with the emotional wisdom and spiritual insight rather than resist it, and work with others as much as you can instead of isolating others. But some of you may need solitude at this time. In terms of karmic meanings and lessons, it wants us to learn to use our personal power and assertiveness in the service of healing and transformation rather than domination and control. Our soul can learn that true strength comes from the ability to face difficult, challenging truths and take action that serves the collective as well as personal good, and that authentic power heals rather than wounds ourselves and others. In terms of past life memories and dreams that could come up right now, these can involve lifetimes where you were a healer, a fighter, a soldier, or transformative agents, someone who changed things like a political leader or a spiritual leader, a teacher, something like that. Also dreams about or memories about our experiences of using power or not using power, or we may have misused our power and in a destructive way, and ways that we used it productively can come up as well. Memories of healing or therapeutic work that require great courage, or situations where you had to choose between being self-serving and just looking after yourself and action that served healing and transformation for others as well. Dreams of being in a battlefield or war, healing temples or underground places where important transformation work was done can come up as well. The collective karma. What can come up is, putting a spotlight on healing our relationship with power and aggression, moving beyond either passive avoidance or destructive use of force, forcing others to do things, and using our action and convincing powers or our personal power in a way that serves healing and collective transformation rather than collective indoctrination and manipulation and destruction. Right? It asks us to collectively develop the courage to face difficult truths and take action that creates genuine healing into account rather than just victory or defeat, right? In terms of influences on relationships and our family relationships, it gives us the ability to take action that heals family patterns and wounds, and the courage to confront family problems that have been avoided. Family leadership that serves transformation rather than controls it, and allows us to be more protective in our action that genuinely serves family well-being, but negatively it can lead to family power struggles or control battles, tendency to use emotional intensity to manipulate family members, family conflicts that become personally destructive, or taking action in family situations without considering others' needs and perspectives, right? So, we should use this in terms of family relationships the increased courage and determination to confront family issues while making sure that action serves healing and collective family good rather than just personal desires or control needs. In friendships, it can allow us to handle intensity and depth, giving us the ability to take action that supports our friends through difficult times and allows us to make social connections that involve mutual healing and transformation. And it can just be more loyalty into our friendships that supports honest change and challenges to make the relationship better and to meet everyone's involved needs. But negatively, friendship conflicts can happen because of the excessive intensity or possessiveness. Friends can feel overwhelmed by emotional depth or demands. Social situations can become uncomfortable due to intensity, or we can use friendship connections to meet unmet emotional needs inappropriately. So it's important to practice supportive action, offering this, and being loyal whilst maintaining appropriate boundaries. And remember that not all friendships need to operate at maximum emotional intensity all of the time, So giving people the space and grace to, come into their own emotional awareness and expression in their own time and respecting other people's boundaries. In terms of co-worker relationships, gives us the increased ability to deal with challenging workplace projects. Professional relationships can handle both depth and intensity right now. Workplace leadership can confront problems at their root cause, and it gives us the ability to take action that improves working conditions for everyone. Negatively, workplace power struggles or political battles can happen. Professional conflicts can happen due to excessive intensity or possessiveness. It gives us a tendency to make workplace issues personal rather than professional, or use our professional positions to control rather than serve others. So it's important to channel any need for intensity and our determined energy into work that genuinely improves professional situations while maintaining appropriate workplace boundaries and focus on collective rather than personal benefits. In terms of committed relationships, action that confronts deep issues rather than surface problems increase physical and emotional intimacy, and it allows us and gives us the courage to work through difficult relationship challenges and to make our partnership support both our individual and mutual transformation. But negatively, relationship power struggles or control battles can happen. Excessive possessiveness or jealousy can happen, and we can just have a tendency to make relationship conflicts more intense than necessary, or use emotional intensity to manipulate rather than genuinely connect with our partners and others, right? It allows us to channel relationship intensity, and this is the best use, this is my advice. Channel the relationship intensity into actions that genuinely serve, the relationship's growth and healing, and make sure that time spent passionately increases rather than overwhelms your connection, So in terms of hookup relationships, they can become more intense and meaningful, giving us the ability to maintain appropriate boundaries whilst engaging deeply in them. Casual relationships can feel more emotionally and physically satisfying, and we can gain a better understanding of our own desires and motivations. Negatively, casual relationships can become unexpectedly more intense or possessive. We can use physical connection to meet unmet emotional needs inappropriately. We can have a difficulty maintaining casual boundaries due to emotional intensity, or expecting a therapeutic level emotional connection from casual hookups, and the other people or person involved may not want that. Singles and those who are self-partnered can, have increased clarity about what you actually want in relationships, giving you the courage to take action towards meaningful connections, giving us the ability to work and personal healing that prepares you for healthy partnership. You can become more self-assertive in a way that attracts rather than, repels, push potential partners away. But negatively, you can become overly intense about finding relationships, using self-improvement work to avoid the vulnerability of actual connection, and taking action towards relationship in ways that feel desperate or controlling, expecting potential partners to handle your full emotional intensity immediately. So it's important to use Mars transit in Scorpio energy for genuine self-healing and development, whilst remaining open to connections that unfold naturally rather than forcing relationship outcomes through intensity alone. So in terms of career development, positively, it can give us the ability to handle intensity and complex professional changes and advancement through dealing with challenges rather than avoiding them, and work that allows you to use your natural healing or transformative abilities can do really well underneath this aspect, and career action that creates lasting rather than temporary change can also be made with this energy. But negatively, too much intensity or a need for control can add to career conflicts, professional burnout from taking on too much emotional and other responsibility in the workplace, and workplace politics can become personally destructive. Or we can use our professional position to work out personal issues. So, the best use of this energy in terms of career development is to channel your professional intensity into work that genuinely serves the collective good, whilst maintaining appropriate boundaries and ensuring that career action increases rather than complicates your work-life balance. In terms of personal development, we can make personal transformation changes through courageous action, and it gives us the ability to face and heal deep personal patterns like destructive ways of relating to ourselves and others, toxic thought, and addictive tendencies like excessive drug or alcohol, Netflix and chilling and all of that. It allows us to focus on personal growth that confronts root causes rather than symptoms, and work on individual development that serves both personal needs and collective healing. Negatively, we can become obsessive about personal development, and this can make us self-destructive. We can use self-improvement work to avoid practical life responsibilities. Our personal growth can isolate us from others, and we can become so focused on inner work that our outer action becomes impossible. So it's important to balance intensive personal work with practical action in the world, and make sure that personal development serves our ability to contribute meaningfully to relationships and community rather than just personal satisfaction. In terms of spiritual development, it allows us to do, inner work and take outer action as well, and understand that healing can be a form of spiritual practice, and spiritual development can serve collective healing, not just our own needs. And the recognition that action can be prayer when motivated by genuine service. Negatively, spiritual practices can become obsessive or escapist, and we can use spiritual development to avoid practical action in the world, and spiritual work can focus too much on personal power rather than service. Or we can believe that spiritual growth requires abandoning assertiveness and action. So it's important to integrate spiritual development with practical action that serves healing and transformation, and remember that genuine spirituality includes rather than bypasses the courage to take action in the material world. In terms of educational development, our learning opportunities can require sustained intensity and focus. Educational experiences can transform our understanding of ourselves and human nature. Academic work can prepare us for healing or transformative service, and we can learn in a way that combines theoretical knowledge and practical application. Negatively, we can become too obsessed about our academic progress in a way that prevents practical application of learning. Our educational plans can become more about personal achievement than service preparation, or we can use academic work to avoid taking action in the world. So it's important to look for educational opportunities that combine intensive learning with practical application, and make sure that education serves our ability to contribute healing and transformation rather than just personal advancement. In terms of our self-partner development, our individual development can allow us to, prepare for meaningful partnerships as well as healing ourselves. It can increase our self-assertiveness and ability to meet our own needs, and we can be focused on personal development that serves both our individual wholeness and our ability to contribute in a healthy way to relationship with others. Negatively, we can use self-partnership to avoid the challenges and intensity of intimate relationships. We can become so self-sufficient that vulnerability becomes impossible, or use personal development work to justify avoidance of collective action with others. So it's important to balance self-partnership development with openness to meaningful connections and teamwork, and taking action in collaboration with others. And remember that healthy independence includes the capacity for appropriate interdependence when it serves mutual growth. So now I'm just going to finish up with the best holistic activities to do with this energy, and self-reflective questions you can ask yourself to help you use this energy in the best way. So if you're more creative, as I said, consider creating art that confronts difficult subjects and emotional truths and has the purpose of healing yourself or others. Develop creative workshops for healing, or use your skills in service of community change, and creative projects that give voice to important social issues, or how art and creativity can help people, and can be therapeutic and heal psychological, emotional and spiritual wounds. Professionals, it allows you to, and it's best for you to, use strategic thinking when dealing with professional challenges. Take on projects that confront root causes of problems rather than the symptoms. Develop your skills in conflict resolution and crisis management, or pursue professional development that increases your ability to handle challenging situations. Entrepreneurs, this is an excellent energy to involve healing, transformation and confronting complex problems, into your day-to-day sort of like product or service offering. You could launch a therapy practice or consulting other businesses, or offer some kind of consulting or healing service that's focused on organisational transformation, or any venture that requires sustained intensity and strategic thinking to create meaningful change. Alternative healers, deepen your healing practice by developing skills that require courage and sustained intensity, perhaps training in trauma therapy, body work that confronts deep patterns, or healing methods that combine psychological and spiritual approaches to create lasting transformation. Lovers, focus on deepening intimacy through courageous conversation and action that confronts relationship patterns rather than just surface issues. And this might involve couples therapy, tantric practices, or simply, create space for the kind of honesty and intense communication that transforms relationships. For those who are single and self-partnered, focus on deep personal healing work that prepares you for meaningful relationships whilst increasing your ability to be, confident, and to improve your individual strength and clarity. Therapy, intensive personal practices, or actions that heal family patterns, especially dysfunctional ones, and, doing the things to heal personal wounds that can help you have better, relationships with yourself and others, in the long run. In terms of self-reflective questions to ask, You can ask in terms of your financial needs, what financial actions have I been avoiding due to fear or complexity, and how can I use my increased courage and strategic thinking to confront these situations? How can I use my increased ability to see beneath surface appearances to make financial decisions that confront root causes rather than symptoms? What does financial empowerment mean to me, and how can I take strategic action that creates genuine financial security rather than just temporary fixes? In terms of your emotional needs, what emotional patterns or behaviours am I ready to transform through sustained action rather than just understanding or talking about them? You can ask, how can I use my increased emotional intensity and passion in ways that heal and transform rather than overwhelm or manipulate others? What does emotional courage mean to me, and how can I take action that honours my deep emotional truths whilst maintaining appropriate boundaries with others? In terms of your spiritual needs, you can ask, how can my spiritual understanding motivate practical action that serves healing and transformation in the world around me? What does spiritual warriorship mean to me, and how can I fight for what's right whilst maintaining compassion and wisdom? And you can ask, how can I integrate my spiritual practice with the courage to face and transform difficult aspects of my life and circumstances? In terms of your psychological needs, you can ask, what psychological patterns am I ready to transform through sustain long-term action rather than just analysis or understanding? You can ask, how can I use my increased ability to understand psychological motivations, both my own and others, in ways that serve healing rather than manipulation or control? We can ask, what does physical courage mean to me, and how can I face difficult truths about myself whilst maintaining self-compassion and commitment to growth? In terms of physical needs, how can I use my increased energy and determination to confront physical health issues that require sustained effort and commitment rather than quick fixes? And we can ask, what does physical empowerment mean to me, and how can I take action that makes my body feel strong, capable and resilient? You can ask, how can I honour my body's need for both intensity and rest, action and recovery in ways that support my overall health and well-being, So all in all, Mars in Scorpio offers us the opportunity to develop authentic personal power that serves transformation and healing rather than controlling others or being dominated by others. Rather than just taking action for the sake of action, we're invited to become strategic warriors, fighters who fight for what truly matters and who are focused on healing and changing for the collective and individual good. But we just need to watch out for using intensity and passion to control others in a manipulative way, and we have to learn to channel powerful emotions into constructive thought and action rather than destructive obsession. And we have to take this opportunity to develop extraordinary courage and determination, mastering the art of strategic action and using personal power in service of genuine healing and transformation. So, ultimately ask us to become a sacred fighter, fighting not to dominate others but to heal what's broken and to change what's stuck in order to make it better and improve it and create the kind of authentic change that serves both individual and collective growth, and evolution. So yeah, that's the end of this very in-depth special on Mars transiting in Scorpio. I'm Amani, your holistic astrological karmic life coach. Take care and see you next time.